Well, what's going on, everybody? Hey, sorry about the intro. I actually accidentally deleted all my files. Well, I didn't do it, accidentally. I actually did it on purpose, but I deleted some of the wrong ones. So I guess you could call it an accident. Anyway, welcome to Freight Broker Live. Tonight we're going to be talking about some of the biggest news stories in the freight industry. Plus, we got to talk about some of the trade organizations, the good, the bad, and the ugly that are servicing the freight industry. We're going to talk a little bit about the cost per mile and do you actually know how much you're making? And we'll talk about a bunch of other things throughout this show. If you enjoy the freight industry and you want to learn more about it, then this is a show for you. And if you currently work in the industry and you hate it, well, this is a show for you because maybe we can provide some sort of understanding at what's going on in the world. You know, but we'll have to wait and see. So hopefully, many of you guys, we'll get something from it. You know what I mean? The first thing I want to talk about is something that happened this weekend and something that I've noticed a lot of online presence over the past couple of weeks. Now, this weekend, there's this group called the National Owner Operator Association, right? Now, this group was formed essentially to better the lives of independent owner ops. Based on that idea, it should be a perfect group. Everyone should get behind it for that reason. But I've noticed a couple of things, right? So when people ask questions, very specific questions of this group, they seem to not want to give an answer, which to me, I just find very disturbing. So I've been like watching on the shadows for a couple of weeks, and then I started having questions myself, and I wanted to get some answers to it. So I joined their group on Facebook and just watched for a while just all the different people that are talking, and every now and then like you'd get some sort of criticism, right? So some people would criticize either the president of the organization, they criticize the services that they're offering, or they would ask very simple questions like what happened to our dues, like that kind of stuff, right? And whenever that happened, there was always this, I would say, completely irrational response from both members of the group that are apparently moderators, and then the president himself of this group would come out and just be like, if you don't like what the F we're doing and you can't stand behind the F and trucker, blah, 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 and just super unprofessional. So it kind of piqued my interest and I wanted to find more about it. I dug a little bit deep, you guys know, and I didn't go like crazy deep like I typically do into things because in all reality, I didn't want to find anything that would dissuade me from promoting an organization that truly seems better than the OOIDA and TIA and everybody. They seem like they have a good grassroots movement, but the problem is the organization seems to be led by people that are completely nuts. And I don't mean that to be mean, but literally completely batshit crazy. Like when you're approached to like ask about your nonprofit status and you call the people effing losers, like that's kind of crazy considering that you have to publicly release that information. When I asked the question of why their nonprofit is registered as a for-profit company in Delaware, they didn't give me any answer on that. Why their company, that's a Delaware company, is operating without the state of New York certification in the state of New York. How come they're not registered to solicit donations from any other state, which they're required to if they solicit over, like, I think it's $2,500, depending on the state? Where's their board of directors? Usually that's public information too with nonprofits. All of these little things that just kind of made me question what is going on with this organization. And so I decided to ask the question in the group, and I didn't get any answers to virtually any single question, which is sad because I wanted to get the answers because I would have joined and I would have repped it and tried to get more people to join. Because in all reality, what the transportation sector needs is a union, or not I hate unions, but an organization that accurately represents the majority of the small trucking companies out there, because the majority of the trucks on the road are small owner operators. So we need something where those voices are being heard. The OOIDA tries to do it, but they get so fixated on selling insurance and fuel cards that they always miss it. So when they're sitting, and the president announces that he's going to create a transportation board, the OOIDA is always the first one to complain about not being chosen because they didn't even apply to be part of it in the first place. And that's an existing thing that's happened. It happened during COVID too. I remember seeing the trucker advisory board to help with COVID and all that stuff, and the OIDA was not part of it. And I remember making a video screaming about it because I'm like, this is insane. You would think that they would be a part of it. So this group, and there's so many different groups out there. This one has a large presence, but the reason why they have the large presence is because they're pushing the same talking points that everybody else does, right? Rates are pretty low right now in terms of the market. So what is the easiest way to get people to agree with you? Oh, complain about low rates all the time. Blame it on brokers, because a lot of people don't understand the supply and demand, the basic necessity that you need to know in order to own a business, right? Supply and demand is a basic fundamental concept that every business owner, no matter what sector you're in, you have to understand supply and demand. If we have an overabundance of capacity, the rates are going to go down. And that's what's continuously happening to the market. And the rates are not coming up. And there's a FreightWaves article that just went out today where they're like, they don't even believe it's going to go up until the second quarter of 2024, which I think we're going to see a little bump in the next month or so. But I pretty much believe the same thing. I can't believe it's taken this long to go. And for everyone that was commenting on it, I don't work for FreightWaves. I haven't worked for FreightWaves for years. In fact, I don't really even talk to them. I think they're a good news organization, but again, they're not geared towards the independent owner ops. They're not geared towards the people that are doing the day-to-day labor of the industry. Maybe the What the Truck podcast, because they sometimes feature drivers and things like that. But for the most part, the organization is geared towards executives. That's their market space. They're selling a software that's an excellent software if you have that need. So we need, that's the whole idea originally behind Freight Broker Live when I started it. Because I wanted to, for one, the reason why I started Freight Broker Live is rates were in the dumps. Remember that 2 or 3 years ago, rates were very, very low, and everybody was complaining about greedy freight brokers. In fact, there was that big May Day protest in 2019, I believe, in May of 2019, where they were around the White House and all that stuff. And it sucks. It sucks because the rates are essentially the same, if not lower than what they were then. Now the cost to operate is even higher, and that's why it's very important to understand your cost to operate. If you don't know how much you need to make, you're going to be losing money. It's as simple as that. You can't pull $1 a mile load on a head haul because you're going to lose your ass on the back haul because back haul lanes are paying dirt cheap. But to believe that freight brokers are the ones that are taking 50, 60, 70% margins like a lot of people do, I don't believe that in the idea that all these brokers are doing it. I know a lot of people want to believe it. It's really easy to be like, oh, that's the only explanation. Why not look at all the trucks here's the thing, they're moving freight. All these freight brokers are still moving freight. If they offer you the load for $1.10 and you get pissed off and you hang up on them, and then you see the load disappear 10 minutes later, that means someone else is taking that load. That's the supply and demand. If people are still accepting those loads, what incentive do they have of raising the rates? Saying that we're going to do a nationwide strike on November 1st unless we get a 375 all miles. Come on, dude. Like, even in a good market, you're not going to get 375 for all miles unless you're running short hauls. Yeah, you can do it running a 20 mile radius. You can get $3.75 per mile, all miles all the time. Or unless you're running like oversized loads or something like that, but you're not going to get it pulling dry vans. Shit, you're probably not even going to get that pulling van for all miles. But people don't realize it. People don't understand it. It's easier just to blame freight brokers instead of taking a good hard look and say, okay, guys, listen, I'm all about carriers, but maybe we should weed out some of these shitty carriers. Because in all reality, we have too many carriers. The rates are not going to come up dramatically until there's less carriers on the road. There's less carriers that are taking this cheap freight, and brokers have to pay more, which means they have to go back to their customers and get more. Go on DAT. Pretty much every carrier out there has the DAT load board. Look at the contract rates versus the spot rates. Spot rates are dramatically lower than contract rates. What do you think happens to contracts? The contracts, the shippers that have these contracts are canceling their contracts, paying the penalties, and moving their freight on the spot because in some scenarios, it's cheaper to pay a penalty for breaking a contract and move your freight on the spot market because obviously it's $1 a mile less or whatever it is. It's so freaking cheap. And everybody can do it. If you have a DAT account, you can look. It has a spot rate and then it has the shipper to carrier contract rate. And everybody needs to know that. You have to understand that until people stop taking the cheaper loads, the brokers are not going to increase their rates. And it's not like they're just going to be like, okay, we're going to pay more because we have all this cash sitting. That's not the way it works. What they'll do is they'll go back to their customer and say, hey, listen, we can't move this load for this amount of money. It's just not, we're not going to be able to do it. We're not going to be able to do it. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I wish more people did. I wish like the trade organization, if they had answers when I asked the questions, I said, isn't it odd? That was the way I prefaced every single question. Isn't it odd that the president of the company is closing a. There we go. Anyway, so I may have just dropped it for a second, but anyway. But I was saying that those are the things that I asked in the group. I said, isn't it odd that this happened? Isn't it odd that this is going on? Isn't it odd? And instead of getting a single answer, like people would say, oh, we already answered that. So, and if you want to be able to see the answers again, you got to become a member. So you got to pay your dues in order to find out if the organization is legit. It sucks. In all reality, I think the group, the idea of the group is great. I think a lot of the members are great. They're moderators for the most part. The ones that I had interaction with are horrible people, just in general. Like the ones that, like one guy's like, oh, you better be careful on the streets. My nickname is Oak. What? Like, shut the hell up. Dude, I'm a 305-pound power lifter. Like, I'm not afraid of some bearded doofus called Oak. All right? Like, he's stupid. But it's funny. Jeff said, and drivers won't stop taking cheap freight as long as they got their $3,600 to $6,000 payments a month. Yeah, I know. Insurance is through the roof, too. You know what would be interesting, right? So if the group, the NOOA, if they truly have 35,000 members, which they do not, I guarantee they don't have that many paying members. They're trying to take the membership that they have on the Facebook group and say they represent all of those people, which they don't, because I know from my comments and all the messages I got after my joining the group and asking questions, I know that a lot of those people are in there to be, whatever. But it'd be interesting if they did have it and they said, okay, it's $125 a month or a year or whatever it is. It'd be interesting if they built up enough of reserves so they do something similar to what OI did and they self-insure. And then they sell their own insurance to these carriers. But then again, you're not actually representing carriers at that point. You're representing your own self-interest, which it seems like they're doing with their fuel cards. Now they're dispatching. I asked, that was one of the questions that really pissed me off. And I asked it very directly. I said, hey, you guys are advertising dispatch services while complaining about cheap freight. Now, I have nothing against dispatch services. However, I don't believe they should be making 10%. Finding loads on the load boards is not really that hard if you actually know what you're doing. And if you were a broker agent, shit, you already know all of it. Because then you know what's a good rate before you even call. If you were a freight broker or even an experienced owner op or anybody that's looked at load boards, you know the business. It's very easy to do it. But they're advertising a dispatch service, and then they tried to say the dispatch service isn't actually their service, it's an affiliate of them, and which it's just the whole thing is stupid. But nonetheless, they wouldn't even give me the MC number for the dispatch company, because again, based on the guidance that the FMCSA issued, you need to have an MC number in order to dispatch trucks. Now, I know a lot of people don't believe that because they have their own interpretation of what the FMCSA says. But the majority of people with a single brain cell know what the FMCSA said, and they know that they're required, if they're dispatching trucks that are going into the same region and that are pulling the same kind of freight, and they're all different companies, you need to have a brokerage authority in order to dispatch those trucks. Because otherwise, you have to act in the benefit of the sole carrier. You can't do that if you're dispatching 4 or 5 of the same vehicles in the same jurisdiction. But it sucks, because I was really hoping to have not even a conversation, just for reassurance myself, that the organization was good. Because many of you guys know I tried years ago to start a trade organization myself, where we would have carriers, we'd have brokers, forklift drivers, everybody. And it's a tremendous amount of work. It's a tremendous amount to try to do it, to hold the meetings, to manage everything. And in all reality, I think we had like 30 members because people didn't know. It's just so much time. It's so time consuming because I needed the members to help lead the thing, lead the charge. And so we were unable to really getting it off of the ground, unfortunately. And so I, just like so many others, because I've been refraining from talking about the NOOA for months, because people have been sending me message specifically about the president of the organization, how brash he is and how rude he is and how, he tells people to F off. And what's he call me, a cue ball? because I'm bald. Like, okay, bro, like really original. It's like talking to a child, right? The same kind of arguments like the my kids would make, the little 8-year-old and 13-year-olds. That's what the ownership of this for-profit company, because they're for profit until I actually see that they're non-profit. And it sucks because the trucking industry needs good people that are representing the right things. Like if you want to go, focus on hours of service, focus on safety regulations, focus on the fact that there's no barrier of entry for anyone to become a carrier. Anybody watching this right now can go out, buy a truck, register your MC number. If you have a little bit of money, buy the truck, buy your insurance, and then you could be out owning a truck, hauling cheap freight, and lose your ass and shut down within 6 months, just like the majority of people. That's what always happens, and it sucks. It really does. Michael said, big crowd. Yeah, I know. It's we have lower numbers now when we're live, but the podcast gets way more numbers than I even get on social media. So I don't know what it is. I think people got so used to me talking about politics all the time that they really don't want to hear about trucking. And I'll be honest, I'm not going back to talking about politics. I live and breathe this stuff, and I haven't been as happy as I have been in the past month just dealing with freight, just talking about freight, booking freight, talking to drivers, doing all that stuff. It truly makes me happy, and I won't be going back to politics. So if you do follow this channel, or you used to follow it for politics, you might as well unfollow, because we won't be doing it again. I will talk, briefly about things that are happening, like there was just a terrorist attack in Brussels. Where a terrorist apparently is shouting "Allahu Akbar" while executing people on the street, and they can't find him. He's riding around in a fluorescent orange vest on a scooter, just randomly shooting people. It's not even random. He's targeting people that are wearing like Swedish. There's a soccer match or something, but that's going on live right now. Obviously, if we have breaking news and stuff like that, we will do that and we'll talk about it. But for the most part, I'm sticking far away from politics because I don't want to anymore. I want to talk about what I like in the trucking industry and in the industry, and hopefully we can have good conversations about it. Hopefully we can get to the bottom of some of these things. Like I think one of the biggest issues that I've realized is that a lot of people don't take the time to understand their cost to operate. Like how can you start a trucking company without knowing how much it's going to cost you to run said trucking company, right? Like that's the craziest thing to me. You will go out and you'll spend $50,000 on a used truck. You'll go out and you'll spend $20,000 on insurance. You'll go out and spend a couple of $1,000s on permits and registration and fees and all that stuff. And then you'll go out and you'll start taking loads for $1 a mile, which is certainly not going to cover any of your costs. And you wonder why a year from now you're losing your house and you're complaining that you ever entered trucking. I don't know why so many people just can't figure out. I don't know why so many people don't actually pay in or pay attention to their cost to operate. You know what I mean? Like I had this great idea and I thought about bringing, because here's the thing. A lot of drivers too, they don't want to drive. Like a lot of the drivers that I've seen on social media, one of the reasons they get out is one, the rates are low. But here's the thing, guys, like I can tell you in all honesty, one of the things I do for every carrier that we dispatch on, or that I dispatch on the carrier side, is I run their trucks. So the first thing I do when I talk to them is I have a cost per mile calculator and we run through their costs, because it's very imperative for them to understand how much they need to make per mile, right? Because a lot of these guys will say, I need to make $3 a mile. I need to make $4 a mile. And I'm like, no, you want to make $4, or $5, or $6 a mile, but let's figure out what you actually need to make. Because once you have that number, right? So say like I did one carrier the other day, it was $1.98 a mile. That was his cost, including 60 cents per mile for himself. That included fuel too. I know you guys are probably like, what the, but it does. It includes fuel as well. In that, because he didn't have a high truck payment. He wasn't one of these guys that has like a subpar $3,500 a month truck payment. His payment was lower. The thing that's interesting about the fact that people don't understand their cost per mile is you're never going to be able to know if you're making money, right? Because you may have money in the bank, but unless you're building a maintenance escrow and you know that money is, set aside for escrow for that, when you blow a tire or you blow a head gasket or when you damage your turbo or whatever happens with a truck, when those things happen, you need to have money set up for to be able to deal with it. Because if you don't have that money set up, guess what happens? You lose your ass, and then you don't have a truck anymore. You're not making any money. You get upside down on your payments, and the next thing you know, you're online trying to sell your MC number for $10,000, but no one's gonna buy it because they all understand there's no point in buying an aged MC unless you're buying the whole trucking company, and they're not gonna buy your trucking company because you're upside down already. Which is the whole reason why you're trying to exit the business. It's someone said driving is one of the last ways to make a living without asking people if you want fries. Driving is one of the best jobs I've ever had. You know what I mean? And it was even better when I didn't have a family. Like, I couldn't do it when I had kids, and my wife. I couldn't, just being, I get homesick just being away from them for 3 or 4 days. Like, I was telling my wife, we're going to have to move. I don't I don't know how I'm going to do this hybrid shit if I have to come back every 2 days, we're going to have to move to Tennessee. But then again, with the market as it is, we're not even going to be able to sell our house. We'll sell our house very quick, but we'll never get a loan as cheap as our interest rate is now. So we won't even be able to afford a house because our payment will be 3 times what it is now. I don't know. We have a weird time. But, driving, the trucking industry is a great industry. Like, one person once said to me, and I don't really hold much that this guy said in high regard, but one person once said something. If you want a job that is guaranteed for life, that's always going to go. It doesn't matter whether we have a national pandemic again. It doesn't matter whether there's bombs. Nothing matters. If you want a job that you're always going to get a job driving a truck, hauling food. You'll always have a job. And that's truly what he said. And like I said, and it's true. Think about it. National pandemics, they waive all the hours of service, and these guys are running around and driving trucks and making deliveries, and they're essential workers that nobody realizes. And it truly is one of the best careers, that you could do regional as well. Like, hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll be hiring regional drivers here and probably in Tennessee as well. Plus, dedicated lanes that we're trying to build, which will be pretty good. But I don't know, man. Things are different. The industry is changed quite a bit, and I worry. Like, I read that FreightWaves article a few hours ago, and if you are on FreightWaves, the title of it was "Trucker Out of Service Orders Hit." No, that wasn't it. Out of service orders hit all-time high. See, that's like a clickbait article. In all reality, because everybody knows, like, if we are having record applications in obviously you're out of service orders, because that means people that are not even starting their trucking company, they buy the insurance, they get out there for 2 weeks, they realize they're not going to make any money, and they bail. Their insurance gets revoked. Now, here's the thing, like, most people, knowing that you're changing insurance or something, you'll change it before you get your revocation letter, and then that revocation letter is then, the whole thing is just, see, I'm going back to the NAA or NOOA thing, which I don't want to, because I already covered it, as much as I'm going to. Unfortunately, that group I won't cover anymore. So any good that they do, it's overshadowed. And because, here's the thing. If you affiliate yourself with people that have been fined by the FTC for defrauding owner-operators and say that you're an owner-operator-centric organization, get the fuck out of here. Like, I excuse my language, but get the out of here. You know what I'm saying? Am I still a VA resident? Yes, I am. Anyway, so there's this article that FreightWaves, Craig Fuller, the CEO of FreightWaves, wrote that I think it's interesting, and I think it's important for everyone, even if you don't like FreightWaves. There's a lot of independent owner-ops that don't like FreightWaves because they believe that the articles that they put out actually hurt the trucking industry because they spread a particular narrative to mainstream media, which is then absorbed by consumers. And so it puts a lot more like, oh my God, the freight industry is crazy, aspect into some of the stories, like the bloodbath and things like that, which, that's a natural occurrence. Granted, we're having a lot of bankruptcies and we'll continue to do so while the market is this way, when people finally realize we can't pull loads for $1 a mile. But yeah, they wrote this article and they were talking about the rise of freight brokerages and how so many freight brokers, there used to be like 18,000, now there's like 200,000. There's so many different freight brokerages out there that are doing a much wider array of services. Like, freight brokers can be full partners to shippers. As a matter of fact, one of the things I used to do was when I would go out and do sales on the freight broker side, I would literally use Indeed job ads. So I'd see a company that's hiring for a logistics rep and I contact them because I know they're shipping. Like, there's a tip for all you guys. Like that's I use the job postings where it's like, oh, carrier payables or anything like that, where it's a shipper that has these functions, because then they're shipping freight, and then you just got to find the way in from that regard. You can't reply to those emails because that's an HR person that you'll never get past. But find the actual contacts. There you go, sales lead person. But um, Jeff said, "Did you know that wearing stilettos makes it easier to double clutch?" I don't know what the fuck that comment is, but hey, maybe that was its focus. It was to get me to calm down for a second. Anyway, so this FreightWaves article came out, and it talks about the rise in freight brokerages, and it talks about capacity. Like, a lot of people like to mention the driver shortage as if that's real. It isn't. We have a supply issue. We have way too many trucks. We also have a retention issue in trucking, because a lot of people are entering the industry and then doing exactly what I did this last time out, where they just realize they can't be away from their family that much, or they don't like sitting, or for whatever the reason, they end up deciding that it's not for them. It's someone said the same oversaturation that happened with the carrier side happened with the brokerage side as well. Yeah, but I think a lot of them are doing third-party services for, for carriers, like dispatch services, back office services. And a lot of people are doing it the right way by filing for their brokerage authority, because in all reality, based on my interpretation of the guidance that came out recently, you need to. In order to do anything in the freight industry, you need to have that authority. Someone said, "Do I have any hazmat loads or roll-off work?" Nope, not yet. And to be honest, our brokerage authority isn't, that whole program isn't live yet, so we're not doing that. I don't even know. I think we're going to get our hazmat on the carrier side, but I don't think we're doing anything. And to be honest, that's freight. Like, when I moved freight, I was a flatbed and I was a dry van guy, almost exclusively partials too. I didn't move a lot of full truckloads. I would say 90% of my freight, and I was a volume broker, so I moved a lot of freight, but 90% of my freight was all partial loads. It was either like a third of a truck or 2/3 of a truck, and it just worked out that the majority of my customers were like that. They were just partials, and I didn't target them specifically to, that's how it worked. But, the FreightWaves article, they say what goes up must come down, which is 100% true. Capacity, there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies. A lot of people are going to lose their ass. A lot of small truckers are going to lose their ass. Like, if you're right now struggling and you're like, I'm not going to make it this week. Like, God, man, I've talked to some drivers that are like, I need to make this amount of money by the end of the week. Otherwise, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to lose everything, blah, blah, blah. That is scary. That is scary to be at that position. Now, what can you do to change that? Again, you got to understand your cost to operate. If your cost to operate is $2 a mile or $2.30, like I think the ATRI said the national average for mega carriers is $2.34 a mile. What I suspect, and which is crazy, because that also means that all the discounts they get for buying in bulk for the trucks and the cheaper drivers and the cheaper labor in that regard, but they're also building in maintenance. They're buying newer equipment, so it's breaking down quite a bit more. And I try to justify that number versus some of the owner ops that I've talked to, and when we run their numbers are low too. And I don't know, like, that's why I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, my calculator may be wrong, because otherwise a lot of people just don't, they're overestimating their cost to operate by quite a lot. I think I've only had a few that we ran through this calculator that come up over $2 a mile for everything, maintenance escrow, everything, for a 20 cents per mile maintenance escrow, which may not be that enough. It may not be enough, but especially now, because I don't know how, I'm assuming just like everything else, the cost to repair your truck also went up. Labor, I mean, God, I can't imagine what towing is costing. I remember when I had a driver that flipped a truck. He fell asleep and he flipped one of my trucks, and we had to have we didn't, the state police required us to have a tow company go up by Rochester and tow it. So they used like one of those rotator lifts and all that crap, because he flipped it in the center median, and he was fine, but he took an Uber all the way back, and I ended up having to pay the Uber from Rochester all the way back to Patterson, New Jersey, where I promptly fired him. I'll be honest with you, promptly fired him, because with that, it wasn't a time delivery. So he was driving when he was tired. He shouldn't have drove when he was tired. I made sure he was all right, and then I fired him. Well, I sent him for a drug test and then I fired him because I had to send him for a drug test because he fucking flipped the truck. But yeah, that company ended up charging me. That company, the tow company, I think they charged me $32,000 to. And what they did is they flipped the truck. See what I thought they did because it made more sense, right? And because of how expensive it was, I thought they transloaded all the freight right there. No, 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 no. What they did is they flipped the truck on its wheels and towed it 2 miles. That's all they did. $32,000. The insurance ended up paying it out after a while, but we ended up having to pay out of pocket like $10,000 just to get the freight off of the truck. And the worst part about it? Once I drove up there in a truck, picked it up with one of our other drivers, we delivered all because we had really high-end furniture in it. So we delivered that furniture and it was fine. There was no damage to the furniture. However, we also had cans in the trailer. So, or like food, like, whatever. In those cans, I think he must have been coming back from Rochester or whatever, because those cans were, oh no, we returned them to the shipper. Who then, and this is the thing, if you guys have ever paid attention to any of these claims, I learned a valuable lesson that day. Because what we ended up doing is we brought 2 cans of like fruit cocktail, right? Or 2 pallets of fruit cocktail. They were the big, restaurant sized fruit cocktail cans. And I think one was fruit cocktail, one was peaches, canned peaches. And we ended up bringing those, it was like 8 or 9 pallets in total. They refused 2 pallets, right? And then they refused to give them back to me. So they claimed 2 pallets and then they kept the fucking goods. Because I told them I'll keep it, I'll donate it. They said no, you're not allowed to, and they took it, and then they claimed the full value. It pissed me off so much because I would have still been eating that fruit cocktail. I love fruit cocktail, but someone said, "How much in all did I pay after insurance?" Nothing. Insurance covered everything. We ended up getting a $10,000 check from the insurance company for the money that we put out. Insurance covered everything, but that was a little bit different because I had an insurance agent who committed fraud. And when we found out, because long story short, verify your VIN numbers on your authority or on your insurance certificates. And this is what we had is I would email her because we were adding trucks like all the time. We were adding trucks, maybe a couple of them a week. Like we experienced rapid growth. So we're adding trucks or we had leases that would break down. So we'd have to sub it out for another truck. And I'd email the agent to get it added to the certificate. She would send me back an accord statement with the VIN number listed on it. Good to go, right? Well, when that truck flipped, we filed the claim and they denied the claim initially, right? And so we're fighting with they denied it because they said the truck was not listed on our insurance policy. And I've talked about this before on the show. And then we figured out what happened is when we added this vehicle to the insurance, we got the accord statement back. She never added it. She literally put the VIN number on the accord statement and went about her day and never added the truck to our actual insurance. So we ended up, I think it was the errors and emissions insurance for the insurance agent, which paid out the entire claim, which I believe is why we got all of our money. I don't even think we did a deductible on that or anything, but we also got dropped by our insurance because we had that accident, which was a big one. We had another driver that he was turning up to 5th Avenue in Patterson down by the Home Depot. He was turning up, making a left-hand turn. And, an insurance scammer pulled up underneath his rear wheels, just crunched the front of her van a little bit. But she ended up, doing a claim and actually sued the driver. It all got thrown out later on. But between that truck, that happening, and then it was like New Year's Eve, I don't know what, 2015 or 2016, we caught them on camera. Someone stole one of our trucks right out of a secured lot. They cut the gate. They backed that thing out. They did what normally would take my drivers, and this was one of the straight trucks. It would normally take my drivers, this is how tight it was, like a 9 or 10 point turn to get the truck out. This dude literally did it in like 3. He just backed up, pulled forward, backed up again, and he was out through the gate. And we watched him on camera. I remember the Patterson Police Department called me at like 6 o'clock in the morning and said, we need to know the name of your driver because one of your trucks just smashed into a bunch of parked cars and then the truck is left running on some street in Patterson, New Jersey. And I said, it's New Year's Day. I don't have any drivers working. And they said, well, your truck's here. And I said, okay, is it still going to be there? Is it towed? And they're like, no, it's running. The keys are inside. And I was like, what the hell? And they're like, we locked the doors. So I went and got a spare key and I went back to where the truck was supposedly left. Nope. It was broken glass. Someone stole the truck again. and we never recovered it. The people that stole the truck, or the people that the leasing company that leased us the truck, they ended up tracking it down like 3 months later, and they sent me a video chat, like I don't know, FaceTime or whatever. They sent me a video chat showing the hood of the vehicle and said, "Hey man, do you recognize this hood?" And I said, "Yeah." And as the camera panned away, there was guys with baseball bats in the junkyard, and I was like, "I didn't see shit," because they're like, "Is this your hood?" And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "We found your truck," but they had already got paid out. But apparently, all of their trucks were getting jacked like crazy. These were those Hino 268 box trucks. But after, so all of those three things, the truck rolling over, the semi rolling over the hood of that car, and then the truck getting stolen, all happened within 20 days of each other. So our insurance dropped us, right? And we had all the insurance fraud stuff going on with our agent. So the insurance company dropped us, like just straight up said no. We were going to do the state insurance because, I mean, at that point we couldn't get insured anywhere because our loss, our claim runs were through the roof. So we couldn't get insurance anywhere. So we were trying to do like the state mandated insurance, and it was just, I couldn't afford it. So we ended up shutting that company down, and I just focused on the brokering, and then brokered pretty much exclusively. I took over a trucking company in 2019 or 2018. A small fleet. We grew it a little bit, and then the market started tanking, so I offloaded my interest in that company before it really got bad, and sold my last truck in 2018, right? No, 2019, right before COVID. When was COVID? 2019, I think. So right as the lockdowns were starting, I remember the guy that we sold the last trailer to. He came and he was wearing a mask and all that, and I was like, "Pussy." but yeah. Yeah, it sucks, man. I love the trucking world, like in general. Like the idea of just being a freight broker is not super appealing. Like how I've brokered freight in the past, it's not appealing to me. In that regard. And I'll tell you, like, because I know this video will likely get shared. If it hasn't already, it'll likely get shared later on in some of those hater groups. And that's fine, and I hope it does. Because here's the thing, like a lot of people could say freight brokers are all bad, and you could say, "Oh, it's because I have a podcast," and that's the reason I was asking the questions. That's not the reason I was asking the questions. The reason I was asking the questions is because I wanted to know. I didn't want to say, "Hey, everybody should go join this organization," if I personally felt like they were being shady. And I didn't know if they were being shady, so I asked a couple of questions, and then I found out that they are in fact being shady. You know what I mean? And that's just my opinion. It's not the opinion of anyone I work for. It's not the opinion of any of you guys. It's my personal opinion, is that if you have the president of an organization that's hiding the ownership in an organization that says they're a nonprofit but is not willing to allow you to see their certificate, which they're required by law to do, saying that they're a nonprofit, something's wrong. You know what I mean? Something's wrong when you complain about cheap freight, but every single service you offer takes money out of the driver's pockets in addition to requiring them to pay membership dues. It just doesn't make any sense. Oh, you get a bad carrier 411, you could pay us, and if we get it removed, that's when you pay. You don't pay anything if we don't get it removed. We see all that shit on the radio or television, like, "Oh, we only get paid if you win." It's just a scam. Like someone said, it's a pyramid scheme. Where they have all these different affiliates and all these different people that are all making money and all the way. And the only people that are losing are the owner ops, the ones that are going on and signing on with these guys. And I understand they're signing on out of desperation, because where else are they going to go? You can't go to the OIDA because they're not loud enough to make a statement or do anything, right? They try. I mean, you got to give it to the OIDA. They try. When they try. But, in my experience, the OIDA spent more time sitting on the sidelines than they did in actually doing any lobbying that was beneficial to owner-operators. That's why we have ELDs. That's why we have all these shitty regulations. That's why the hours of service suck. You know how much it sucks to see a driver that's so close to a delivery can't go? I know they have it in them to be able to drive. They want to drive. They want to drop the load so they can go, but they can't because they're handcuffed by the ELD. You know how much it sucks when a driver makes a F up on the ELD and then they have to sit and do their reset because they screwed up and forgot to go into PC, and we could change it, but we're not going to? Like, all these different things. Like, we got to do better. And maybe that was the goal of the NOOA, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do it, because if you can't ask or if you can't answer a podcaster, as they keep trying to say, or a shitty freight broker or a cue ball, if you can't answer the questions that I ask that are very basic, like what's the brokerage MC for the dispatch arm? What is your nonprofit status? Are you truly a nonprofit, or are you a for-profit company? If you're a for-profit company, then say it. But when you're going out and advertising that you're a nonprofit but you don't have profit status, that's fucking wrong. You know what I mean? That's my belief. And it's not going to change just because someone wants to attack me and says, "Let me see you in the streets." Come on, bro. You know what I've been doing for the past 2 years? I've been talking about politics, where I got death threats on the week. Where my address was doxxed within a month or within a week of moving to Virginia, where we've had to sprawl out people that trespass on our property with guns. Like, do you understand? I'm not worried about any trucker. Come on. I just have questions. I want to know what's going on in these organizations. You know what I mean? Jeff said, just thought it's off topic, but whatever happened to those lawsuits and the criminal investigation and the folks that were exploiting aliens in BLM? See, I don't know what they're doing. I know they're all under federal or state indictments. Pretty much everyone that sued me is under federal or state indictments for, either tax stuff. Everything that I wrote about, finally, the government finally decided to pay attention. And so a couple of them have been indicted federally. Almost all of them have been indicted on a state level for some fucked up crazy shit, like sex offenses and stuff like that. So I think they just forgot about the lawsuits for me reporting what they ended up getting indicted for later. But that's the update for that. But the state of Virginia is really weird, because it's like, apparently there's no way to like have it dismissed, because the ball's not in my court, so to speak. So it's in theirs. So the only way I could do it would be to countersue, and I don't, like, fuck them. At this point, I'm not going to do it. I'm not even dealing with any of that stuff. I wish the best for everybody, and I hope they spend a long time in jail. That's all I have to say about them. But that's the update, because a lot of people, well, it doesn't even matter. We live in a weird market, man, and I hope that people start paying attention to what matters right now, which is one, understanding your cost to operate. Like, I'm going to do several things in the next couple of, probably weeks, right? While I'm waiting for, our new venture to fully open and be, offered out. I'm going to make a bunch of videos. Like, some of the videos are going to be very self-explanatory stuff. Like, how to use the load board to book freight, how to negotiate with a broker. Because I've realized, after talking to so many drivers, and not just drivers that are leased on, but I've been talking to a lot of drivers that are just doing their own thing out there, a lot of owner ops and things, that just don't have the understanding of how to book freight, how to negotiate, how do they do carrier packets, how do they do all these things. And we just gotta figure it out, man. Like, and so I'm just going to start making instructional videos from that regard, because I do have a different insight. I was a freight broker. I was a carrier first. I was a driver first. I loaded all my own trucks. I drove our forklift. I had a 26,000 square foot warehouse. That's what I did. I live and breathe this stuff. And I could tell you, coming back and dealing with the freight industry, I was telling one of my bosses the other day, I don't know what it is, but everything is lining up. Like, in terms of every single little thing, all the things that were like keeping me back from being successful over, or not continuing the rise of success over the past like 6 months, because it's been pretty freaking bad. All those limiters are gone. So like, our coffee business is going to be taken off real soon. And then the freight industry, like, I mean, what we are developing here's the thing. And the funny thing is, I have control over it. So we have what is essentially what I've been trying to do in the trucking industry for 17 years. I get to build it, and we're going to do it. So, and a lot of people do, like, a lot. I'm not even going to say shit, but I'm going to tell you what we're going to be doing is very, very, very different than anything you've ever seen before. Because for one, it's to build capacity, and two, it's to be able to use that capacity to get direct freight that benefits the people that are actually pulling it. You know what I mean? Direct lanes, direct to shipper lanes that are built through a system where you actually get paid what you're supposed to. So it's going to be pretty good. Someone said, if they hire remote dispatchers, reach out, homie, kind of bored in early retirement. I'm not doing anything remote. That's it. That's the thing. Like sales, we'll bring on outside salespeople and things like that. But I'm not doing anything remote. No remote because again, I have a vision. This is what I was saying to them, and I was telling my wife too. I'm like, I don't want to hire remote employees. I want to hire employees that are there. For one, because I get to manage them, I get to train them the way I want and do the things that I want. And secondly, I need to do it because I have a vision and I'm being allowed to take my vision and do what I want with it. So that's how I'm going to do it. And I can't do that remote. I'm just hoping that they understand that we're going to be busy. I'm sure they watch this. So I hope you understand. We're going to be busy. Like that center office space, like we need that. Like pretty soon because it's when we fully release it and everything that we're doing. Because here's the thing, there's a lot of companies out there that promise to help small carriers and small owner ops, and they promise to do all these things. We're gonna do it as a big package. Where I tweeted about it the other day, right? So you get websites, you get phone numbers, you get emails, you get dispatch, back office, all this stuff at an affordable rate on the dispatch side. But the thing that I didn't really say is we're building a trailer pool system that'll be power only, dedicated runs all over the country. That plan is going to take a little bit. But the other part that I want to do is I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Someone said, you area blowhard, you not going to do nothing. Here's the thing. If you're going to try to insult me, at least use a proper sentence. Like Betty Hicks, like that sentence is just, it's hard to take you seriously. It's like the guy that was threatening me the other day, but he couldn't spell any of the things that he was trying to say to me correctly. so it just didn't work. But it was crazy. People are crazy. Someone said at that time they didn't know we were brokering it out. LOL. Oh, someone said we had a customer named Go Buy Truck. It was one of my first customers. They do what you described. The freight bill gets prepaid and matches the carrier. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who that is. Oh, but they didn't know you were brokering it out. LOL. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not because we're the broker as well. So, it's essentially we're not a broker, we're a third-party logistics company. Because third-party logistics companies will be asset-based or light asset-based. There's a lot of things that we're going to be doing, but one of them is it involves a marketplace. You know what I mean? Where and that's it. I'm not saying shit else because that part's going to take a little bit to go. That'll take a little bit. But yeah. What else? I don't know what else. We talked a little bit about the cost per mile. I'll probably, because that's such a long video, and I've made them before. They're on my YouTube page about understanding your cost per mile. But eventually, I want to get like a whiteboard so I can actually write it all out so people can understand it. But in the next week, I'll put out a video that'll show how to use the DAP board. I'll do. Someone said easy peasy if it's asset based, just time. Yeah, I know. And here's the thing: we're an asset based carrier. We already have a shit ton of trucks. So the thing is, we're going to roll that in and make basically a trailer pool system, where we're using our trailers. The freight, obviously, the goal of our industry is to move that freight, or the goal is to move that freight on our trucks. But the way I go, I'm a volume broker, so I'm going to get more freight than we could pull on our own trucks. Even if we tripled the amount of trucks that I have, eventually, but 2 years from now, we're going to have, I single-handedly will bring in more freight than that, because that's the one thing I've always not had, is the capacity. So I was always, hesitant on taking on big contracts because I then would have to go out and broker all the work. In this scenario, I won't, because we'll have our asset-based side, but then we'll have our capacity side through our managed back office and, a TMS for carriers and all sorts of stuff. And the thing is, like I'll tell you, actually I won't, but you watch. Yeah, I think everyone is going to be pleasantly surprised, because it's going to be what I think, to start off with, something that the industry needs. And I think, because in all reality, I think it's the way the industry is going. I think a lot of automation on the back office tasks, by some of these small to medium sized fleets. A lot of the things, the remedial tasks that they can do, we can automate those. And it's not truly automated. We could just do them faster and more efficient than they can, which allows them more time to focus on adding equipment, to qualifying their drivers, to booking loads and doing all that stuff, which we could do as well. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that we'll be doing on that end. So I'm pretty excited about it, because I just think it'll be good for the industry, So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for this show. Like, I had some other stuff I wanted to talk about, but I think I'm just gonna let sleeping dogs lie. I was gonna go a little bit more. Like, obviously, I do. Anyone that's been watching the politics side of this for 2 years, that when something rubs me the wrong way, I dig pretty damn deep, and I did. I just don't want to. You know what I mean? Because I believe somehow, like, if they got rid of their president, put in someone that was just a little bit more buttoned up, then that organization would be a good organization. But right now, you got a bunch of boneheads that are running it and that are making a mockery of all other truck drivers. Like, that's what the people that are actually paying membership dues need to say to these guys. It's like, listen, you guys have a good message, but you're fucking ruining it every time you open your mouth. Every time you make a video and you curse out in public and do all that stuff. That's, when people are asking you questions about it and you start cursing at them and losing it, you know how many people I've gotten emails from, about this, and some bigger ones, some bigger accounts, some bigger people, some bigger companies have just been like, what is up with them? They have such a great idea. Why are they doing it? And I don't know, but I ultimately, I don't run that, nor would I. I don't have time to do anything. They just need to find someone that is a bit, less. Because, I know he says, like, it, or the president of that North America, whatever it is, National Owner-Operator Association, I know he says the reason he's like that is because he just cares so much about it. But that's not equality. You're not going to be able to go out and get new business. You're not going to be able to go out and get real sponsors. You're not going to be able to grow that organization, and certainly not going to be able to go and sit down and talk to legislators when you talk the way you do. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to get any policies done. You are the stereotypical truck driver. You are the reason why truck drivers are treated the way they are now, because you are living out the stereotypical truck driver image. Because that's not what all truck drivers aren't these brash crash, like fucking nickname Oak, dumbasses. No, what they are is they're business owners. They're executives, their own executives. They are family men. They are people that are out there, and women, people that are out there building a business to see it be successful. And the problem that the trucking industry has is this misrepresentation of what a trucker is. A trucker is and should always be considered a business owner. But we don't hear that from the mainstream, right? Because it's just not, they're not perceived that way by, and who can blame them? Can you blame, people for not, I mean, look at who's leading that organization. Look at who's leading some of the other trade organizations as well. They're not good representations of the trucking industry. Sure, you may have a shit ton of experience, but you also have to be like, okay, like, for example, I'm not that polished, but I clean up well, right? And I could sell, and I talk too much. So those are things. But say I didn't have that, right? And I didn't have that quality, and I was all reserved, and I was all mellow, and I wasn't an outspoken person, right? If I was that kind of person, do you think I'd be successful in sales? No. You know what I mean? You have to be you have to be outgoing. You have to talk to people. You have to understand the industry. And I don't know where I was going with that. It's late. I've been working all day. But I think you guys know what I'm saying. Like, and I don't mean any ill will towards, anybody there. I just wish that, they were more open to criticism, and more open to giving honest answers. Like, if you are a for-profit, type out put out a press release saying you are a for-profit company. It'll change the perception. That's why you haven't done it. And if you are a nonprofit, go out and put out your certification from the IRS saying that you're a nonprofit. You don't want to do that either. So the whole thing just very confusing to me, and I hope that truckers get the recognition, like this organization could like talk about the fact that all these new truck parking apps keep coming out. I'm surprised they haven't promoted a sponsorship for a truck parking app where they're converting paid or free parking to paid parking, and we're all as people that care about this industry supposed to applaud that they're taking away free parking spots and adding paid parking spots, and now it's just not a flat $25 a night. No, now it's surge pricing. So if they only have 2 spots left, instead of 25, the app is going to automatically increase it to 75 because they know one of you guys is going to pay for it. That is what's happening to this industry, and it happens everywhere. It's happening in the reverse in terms of freight bidding and all that stuff, where carriers are outbidding themselves, and it sucks, but that's just the way it is. Like the other day I was on this website where I bid something, and then I saw another carrier bid a rate far lower than what I did. And I'm like, for one, that's really bad negotiating skills. Like, you shouldn't have undercut me by like $500 because my rate was, I know what I'm doing. So my rate was manageable. It wasn't, we wouldn't turn a profit pulling it for $500 less than what it was. But I don't know. We don't see enough people speaking out about that. The only people that are actually are FreightWaves. But they don't really speak about it. They highlight it. They highlight the news in a way that makes you say, is this good or is this bad? Do you know what I mean? And that's part of the reason why I like FreightWaves in that regard, because they do kind of leave it up to open to interpretation on what they believe. And to be honest, they're very smart people. So when they talk about freight recessions and they talk about how more companies are going to go belly up, I've worked amongst them. They know what they're doing. They're excuse the term, they're nerds. Like they take this data and can figure out shit that I can't even imagine why. And I understand it because I'm taking statistics right now in school. It fucking sucks and I hate it. And I can't wait till I'm done. But yeah, I still go to school full time. I work full time, doing all the stuff I'm doing now, and I go to school full time. And I just got back into the gym. I'm back seriously. So I'm back in the part where I can go to the gym and not be sore the next day. So it's good. But yeah. We'll figure it all out. I think things have a way of kind of working themselves out. I think, unfortunately, with the NOOA, if they don't get their shit together pretty soon, it'll end up just falling by the wayside. Very similar to how Black Smoke Matters and all that stuff did years ago. I mean, they had a great movement. They had thousands of people that supported them all the time. And then they got a couple of times where they were on the media, or they were highlighted by the media, and they sat around smoking cigarettes, cursing and talking about this and that. Media stopped paying attention to them, and they all disappeared. They're probably part of the same group now, to be honest, because it's the same kind of attitude, which sucks because we don't need that kind of attitude. We're trying to break that attitude. That's the stereotype of all truckers that everyone's trying to break. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw the people at NOOA at one of these trade organizations wearing sandals. They seem like the type. No, I know that was just a low blow, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. We do need representation, and the idea of what they started is good. I started seeing things that were weird when I saw that they put out a fuel card, and that I saw that they're doing dispatching, and I saw the complaints about their internal load board, and I saw that they're, charging people for, different, challenging carrier 411 and all that stuff. There's just a lot of things that kind of make you scratch your head and say, this doesn't make sense. You're either an organization or you're not. I think they're more like OIDA, where they're about making money, or what's the other one, NASTEC or whatever, NAST something. I think they're more of that kind of organization where the person at the top is the one that's going to be making money. I mean, and until I see it, until that 990 is released, and they probably haven't even filed one yet because they just started a couple of months ago. But when they file their 990, that's public, and then we'll all know the truth if they're a nonprofit. If they're not a nonprofit, we'll never actually know. So we'll have to see. But I appreciate all you guys for watching. If you have a topic you want me to cover, go to the YouTube page. The link should be in the description, or just search my name, Steve Oatley, on YouTube. In the comments of this video, ask a question. If you want me to focus on something, you want me to talk about trucking, you want me to talk about this, you want me to try to get someone to come on the show, and also the NOOA president, you're still more than welcome to come on the show if you want to explain. yourself. But, as you said, you have no interest in doing so. So, I mean, fuck off. Then, I'm not going to say anything else about your organization unless you do something else stupid, and then I'll cover it. But, if you want to come on and try to, tell us what you're doing. Are you for profit or are you non-profit? Should truckers support you, or should they just view you as the same kind of swindlers that you're promising to go against? Do you know what I mean? And that's it. My next show will be Wednesday night. Also, I am starting to write a little bit, but I'm writing very quickly. I don't know if you've noticed, so my articles have not been the same type of articles that I've written in the past because I do work full time. But I am writing on freightbrokerlive.com. So I have a bunch of articles that I put out this morning that I've been writing over the past couple of days. And they're more like educational. So about your cost, about the parking thing, because it pisses me off more than anything. Because it happened to me. I remember going to a parking spot, seeing a TA Express. Back when I was driving before, there were no such things as TA Express. So I pulled into a TA. I was fucking tired. I had no more hours left. I pulled in there, saw it was paid parking. And I was like, what the hell? And almost went to buy paid parking, but I needed a shower. So I walked in and I'm like, hey, how much is parking? They're like $25. And I said, can I have a shower? Can you include a shower there? Because I didn't have any showers left. And they're like, yeah, that's $16. I said, fuck it. I slapped that bitch in personal conveyance and drove another hour to the nearest truck stop. I was so mad. I was so mad. Cassie said, I miss your news shows. I will not be doing news shows anymore. Not about politics, about news, current events, stuff like that. Not unless it involves trucking. So, you may miss it, but I'm so much happier now, kind of avoiding that. I still watch it. I'm on Twitter all day, but I'm even making it a point to not even comment about politics and stuff because I feel free. I really do. I feel so much better. Just mental health wise and everything. I feel so much better. I'm in, I don't know what you would describe it. I'm in the perfect place, because I'm working for a company that I really, really like. The owners are fucking badass, and they don't think the same way as me, but they're willing to actually listen to the ideas. And even some ideas that I have nothing to do with their trucking side at all, but I'll still give ideas and things that could, simplify some things. And they're like, that's a good idea. And I'm like, I know it is, but it feels good, because I don't have anything to do with the trucking side. I'll do the broker and all this stuff, which, mark my words, they're probably watching. It'll be a higher revenue than the trucking side. It may take me just as long, but I will. You watch. I got plans, man. We'll be busy. But anyway, I appreciate all you guys. I'll be live again on Wednesday. If you want me to talk about something specific, please consider going to the YouTube page. Just Google, you search Steve Oatley on YouTube, Steve Oatley YT. It's the @ symbol and Steve Oatley YT. And you'll get to this video, comment on this video, and then I'll pick one thing to talk about on Wednesday at the end. And then maybe Friday, no guarantees, but I'll be home alone on Friday because my wife and kids are going to Jersey. Maybe on Friday, I will do a call-in show, like the good old-fashioned Freight and Whiskey. Maybe I'll buy myself some whiskey and do a Freight and Whiskey call-in show where we just talk about, the freight industry from a fun perspective. And obviously that show, I may have a running disclaimer on the bottom because I likely, especially if I'm drinking, may start talking about politics. So I may have a running disclaimer that day and say the views that are espoused here have no relation to my company or whatever. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But I appreciate all you guys for hanging out, and even the people that don't like it because you just miss, politics. Sorry, but I'm glad you stayed here. Make sure you leave a comment on this YouTube video. We'll figure out what to talk about next. Also, if you go to freightbrokerlive.com, you can see a subscribe button where you get a newsletter. I'll start sending that in a couple of weeks, every single day, where you'll get all the news stories I write. But you will also see something where you can subscribe for money. Now, what that does, I think it's like $5 a month or $50 a year. What that does is it helps me cover the cost of the software running it, which is not expensive. We should have did that a long time ago. But I'm also going to take all of the profits from that because I draw a full-time paycheck from my job. So, and the Freight Broker Live thing is still all mine. But I'm going to donate that every month to a trucker charity So after, whatever the expense of the software that I'm using to host that website. So say I make $100 and it costs me $10 a month to host it. I'll donate 90 every month, and I'll probably do a poll and we'll chew it. We'll choose as a group. Someone said, am I still doing coffee? Yes, sir. Go to puretruthcoffee.com. And most of you guys will probably start seeing ads on the coffee side, because now things are starting to figure themselves out in my personal life and my financial situation. So we'll start putting out more ads and promoting the coffee side. And I am going to be doing a limited run of the Awake Not Woke, the Victory or Death, and the Blueberry Cobbler. That's what I've decided. I haven't even ordered it yet, so we're going to be a little ways away. But if you like those roasts, make sure you stay tuned, because I will post the links to them when they are available. But I only ordered 26. Well, I'm only gonna order 20 pounds each of each roast, so that's 26 12-ounce bags per roast, and it's all gonna be whole bean. So you're gonna want to order. So just stay, make sure you follow the Facebook page, because that's where that notice will go out. Anyway, guys, yeah, I'll see you Wednesday for a regular show, and then the Freight and Whiskey will likely be on Friday. All right, Friday around 8 o'clock. All right, we'll see you later. Bye.